Hi everyone, Obi189 here and welcome to the 5th devlog of Fisher's Isle, a low-poly survival and exploration game where you play as a toy in a kid's sandpit trying to escape. It's been almost 6 months since the last devlog, so let's jump into it. After the last devlog, I started working on the next sandpit. It's basically a new island, much larger than the previous one. To consistently remind you that you are just a toy, I placed a couple of photorealistic assets from the Quixel megascans into the world, such as this stone or these plants. I think this contrast really helps making the experience much more immersive. Here you can see Unreal's new water that came with the last update. While I think it looks great, I might still use my own shader, but try to make it look more photorealistic. My own water is just more flexible at the moment, as Unreal's water is closely connected to the landscape. Currently, it's rather cumbersome to sculpt the landscape, as it is spline-based due to the ocean water body. Furthermore, it would take me a lot of time porting the slicing shader for the side view when the player is diving. When playing Fisher's Isle, I want to emulate the feeling of playing with toys in a real sandpit. For this reason I decided to replace the sand texture, as it was just too coarse and looked more like gravel than the fine-grained fluffy sand that we all know from playing in a sandpit. I made several failed attempts to replace the photoscans with a procedural texture in the past. The biggest issue is the height-based method of substance. Every point on the plane has only one height value. The ambient occlusion as well as the normal map is then derived from this height texture. As a consequence, it's not possible to create concave shapes. If we take a closer look at the sand, we can make out many different concave shapes. To cope with this limitation, I played around with fluid and particle simulations in Blender. The baked normal maps didn't really turn out quite as expected, so I also tried to sculpt various concave shapes. This didn't cut it either, so I ended up giving Substance Designer another shot. To be honest, my end result is 50% lucky coincidences from try and error and 50% methodic procedure. It took quite a while to obtain a similar quality as the photoscans, but I'm quite happy with the result now. Another new addition is the mesh accurate sand trail system. I implemented it closely following a tutorial that I link in the description, in case you want to do something similar. Some said it looks a bit like walking through snow, but that's actually exactly what I tried to achieve, since you're a small toy walking through grainy sand. Let me know if you think I should tune down the footsteps height. The height is also variable, that means walking through wet sand close to the water creates only shallow footprints. The new island will be ruled by a king, living in a sandcastle. It's the first time I created a photorealistic asset, and it took me roughly 20 hours from start to finish. I struggled with the topology for quite a bit and had to restart from scratch several times in order to get it right. A good topology is crucial for a smooth transition between the different parts. I made the texture in Substance Designer and gave it some polish in Substance Painter. For accessing the castle, I made a popsicle stick bridge and animated it using the spline mesh component with variable points. The moat around the castle is still work in progress and will be decorated in the near future. While the final game will also feature Seagulls, I really wanted to model a Stork. Here you can see the concept sketch and the final textured and animated model. As for the navigation, it's the same as with the shark. 3D navigation is not supported by Unreal, so I created my own steering-based solution with collision avoidance. Here is a short demonstration of the flight path the AI dynamically creates based on the current and the target location. The movement is subject to constraints such as maximum height, acceleration and rotation rate. The collision avoidance can be best described by the whiskers method. Once the Stork has landed, it transitions back into character-based ground movement. The Stork will go after clams and steal your chance to sell valuable pearls. Here's a short preview of the new map featuring 2 islands with different mobs, a jungle, a desert and a town around the sandcastle. For the desert I made this carport saloon with physics-based doors. While playtesting I couldn't help but think it would be really cool to use a controller, so I added controller support. I have used a program called REWASD to join the two Joy-Cons and map the gamepad buttons to the input. With the pre-alpha demo in mind, I then decided to work on the survival system, so now the player can sleep in a bed. I think it was about time, as our hero sure is tired after running around for more than a year. I also polished the clouds and the sky, since I made the camera pitching slightly outwards to show the border of the sandpit and the sunset. You can now also plant trees and use them as a food source. Speaking of food, I've also added a health system, so when you eat, you will now regain health lost from fighting mobs. The next steps will be to extend the building system shown in the previous devlogs, so that resources are required and new structures can be built. I joined another game jam in January, with the goal of creating a small game in 1 month. Game jams are an experience I can recommend to everyone. You get a different view angle and learn many new things. It's also a great opportunity for finding like-minded people. For this jam, I teamed up with Hakon and Anton. Quickly, we all saw the potential of our game idea and decided to continue working on it after the jam. Our small sci-fi survival game became a full-fledged side project for me. That means I'm spending about 50% of my game dev time for Project Malaise. This doesn't really slow down the development speed of Fisher's Isle though, as both games share many systems. Also, it's really refreshing to work in a team. Currently, we're working towards the release of our first prototype. Another reason for the long time between this and the previous devlog is that every new devlog tends to get less views than the previous. Every like and every comment is therefore very helpful for getting more eyes on Fisher's Isle. You can also join our Discord server if you want to participate in the development by testing the game and discussing ideas. You can find the invitation link in the video description. If you want to get weekly updates, you can also follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching, stay tuned.